When you look up at the night sky, you're not just seeing stars. You're seeing a universe that is unbelievably ancient, impossibly vast, and absolutely packed with planets. And yet, when we actually listen for any sign of anyone else out there, all we hear is silence. This huge, kind of spooky contradiction? That's the Fermi Paradox. And it forces us to ask one of the biggest questions there is. Are we alone?
To really get the weight of that question, first, we've got to wrap our heads around the numbers we're dealing with. And honestly, the scale of the cosmos, it almost breaks your brain. 2 trillion. Yeah, a 2 with 12 zeros after it. That's our best guess for how many galaxies there are in the observable universe. Every single one of them is a massive island of stars, gas, and you guessed it, planets. Okay, now let's zoom way in to just one of those 2 trillion galaxies, our home, the Milky Way. Here, just in our own cosmic neighborhood, we're talking about 100 billion stars. To put that in perspective, that's more stars than there are grains of sand on every single beach here on Earth.
And this is where it gets really wild. Thanks to some incredible telescopes, scientists figured there could be around 40 billion planets that are roughly Earth-sized and orbiting in that Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, just right for life. And that's just in our galaxy alone. 40 billion chances for something to happen. And that brings us to the big question. It's the exact question physicist Enrico Fermi apparently blurted out over lunch one day back in 1950. With numbers that huge, the universe should be buzzing with civilizations, right? They've had billions of years to get going. So why don't we see anything? No probes, no ships, no hello texts, just silence.
You see, Fermi's question wasn't just some idle thought. It actually got scientists thinking, hey, could we try to calculate this? To turn this philosophical mystery into a numbers game and figure out just how many neighbors we ought to have.
And that leads us to this, the Drake equation. Now, this isn't some magic formula that spits out a perfect answer. Think of it more like a recipe or a guide for thinking about the problem. It breaks that one giant question down into smaller, bite-sized pieces.
So, first, the equation starts with the basics. How many new stars are born in our galaxy on average each year? This gives us our starting pool of raw materials, the potential homes for life. Okay, next up, we start narrowing it down. We take that number and multiply it by the fraction of those stars that actually have planets. And thanks to modern astronomy, we now know that's, well, pretty much most of them.
And now we get to the really big question marks. We take that huge number of planets and start asking the tough questions. On what tiny fraction of those could life even start? And then, on what fraction of those planets does life actually become complex and intelligent? And finally, the last step. How many of them develop technology that we could actually detect from way over here? With each step, that big number gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
But here's the punchline. Even when you plug in really conservative, pessimistic numbers for all those unknown steps, the Drake equation still points to a wild conclusion. There should be thousands, maybe tens of thousands of intelligent civilizations in our galaxy, right now. The math says they should be there. Our telescopes say it's empty.
So how do we explain this gap between the math and reality? Well, it's led to some fascinating, and let's be honest, pretty terrifying theories. And one of the biggest is called the Great Filter.
The idea is pretty simple but profound. It says that somewhere on that long road from primordial ooze to a galaxy-hopping civilization, there's a wall, a barrier, an evolutionary step that is so hard to get past that almost nobody makes it.
So, where could this filter be? Was it the very first step, that near impossible leap from non-living chemicals to the first simple cell? Or was it the jump from single cells to complex creatures like us? Or maybe intelligence itself is the barrier. Any one of these steps could be the universal gatekeeper that explains the silence.
And when you start to wonder where that filter might be, you're left with two very different conclusions about humanity's place in all of this. And both of them are pretty chilling.
Okay, so here are the two big possibilities. The first one is, in a way, kind of hopeful. It's the idea that the Great Filter is behind us, that maybe the leap to our level of intelligence is so incredibly rare that we are one of the very first or maybe even the only ones to ever make it through. If that's true, the universe is quiet because we're special. But the other possibility is much darker. The Great Filter is still ahead of us.
This idea suggests that almost every advanced civilization eventually reaches a point where they destroy themselves, through war, technology, climate change, you name it. If that's true, the silence isn't a mystery. It's a warning. We're not special. We're just next.
Of course, the Great Filter isn't the only idea out there. Some people think we might be in a sort of cosmic zoo, being watched but left alone. There's the terrifying dark forest idea, where everyone is hiding because they're afraid of being attacked. Or, hey, maybe we're just too early to the party. Or we're not even listening for the right kind of signals.
But no matter which theory you find yourself drawn to, they all come back to the exact same place, this profound, fundamental, and totally unsolved mystery we face every time we look up at the sky.
And so, this is what we're left with. In a universe that should be noisy and full of life, we have an overwhelming lack of evidence for it. We have the great silence. And the more we learn about how many chances for life there are, the louder that quiet gets. It's a silence that practically screams for an explanation. And that leaves us right here, on this tiny blue planet, just wondering, is the silence a final answer, telling us that we are all alone in this vast cosmic ocean? Or is it just the quiet before a conversation has a chance to begin? The truth is, we don't know. The answer is still out there, waiting for us in the stars.